Okay, so I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for joining. Thanks for traveling all the way here. Let's also say hi to the people listening on the live stream. So I'm Ken Timsit, and I work on the Cronos project. What is Cronos? Cronos is an EVM-compatible layer 1 blockchain that is backed by Crypto.com. So why does Crypto.com back layer 1 blockchains? We'll talk about that. But more importantly, in this room, we have Ethereum developers. And so I'm not just here to pitch Cronos. I'm here to talk about how you, as a Dapp developer, can start thinking about this multi-chain world that is coming upon us, how to understand the various types of bridges that those layer 1 blockchains offer to you as a Dapp developer, and how you can take advantage of that to offer a multi-chain experience to your users. So I'll give some context about Cronos, and then the bulk of the presentation will be about cross-chain connectivity. What are the options available to you, and what have we learned as an L1 by, through the process of implementing those bridges. So in 2021, 200 million people have purchased a crypto for the first time. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. And of course, the majority of those 200 million people have purchased their first crypto through a centralized exchange. So now, what is happening with those users? You have a bunch of centralized exchanges who have started to think about how they can start bringing those users to the full Web3 experience, the full self-custodial experience. And why are they doing that? Why are they not hoarding users? They are doing that because they believe in Web3, they believe in the promise of decentralization, and in the innovation opportunities that this creates. And so, Cronos, like BSC, to some extent like other chains that are backed by a centralized exchange, is here to take those hundreds of millions of users who are centralized exchange users and bring them to Web3, therefore to your dApps, so that you can offer to them the full Web3 experience. And so that's why we're here, and that's why Cronos was created. So if you look at Cronos under the hood, what is it? So it's an EVM-compatible blockchain. It's built using the Cosmos SDK. So the Cosmos SDK is an SDK that allows you to create all kinds of blockchains for all kinds of applications. And among those applications, you can decide that you're going to build an EVM that reads and executes smart contracts. And so that's what Ethermint, which is the underlying technology, is about. And Ethermint has been used to create Cronos. So Cronos is a POA chain. So there are currently 26 validators with more to come. Each validator has some staked tokens that represent their share, their voting power within the consensus. And because it's a POA chain, the chain has small block times. It's around 5 to 6 seconds, low transaction fees, and of course a small environmental footprint as well. So Cronos chain is live since November 2021, and so everything is going well so far, and that's why we thought the time was right to tell you a little bit more about that project. Because Cronos is EVM compatible and built on the Cosmos SDK, it is compatible with two very important ecosystems within blockchain and Web3. So on one hand, it is interoperable with all the other EVM networks, so Ethereum, BSC, Avalanche, Polygon, Arbitrum, and others. And that means the bridge technologies that are EVM compatible work with Cronos, but also, of course, all the smart contracts and the tooling that you are used to as an ETH developer, you can use that on Cronos. And also, it is interoperable with the Cosmos ecosystem, which, around the world, and particularly in Asia, has gained a tremendous amount of traction with communities that have rallied around specific use cases for blockchain, such as payments and others. And so, as a Dapp developer, like, why should you be interested in those alternative L1s and in Cronos in particular? Well, you should be interested in them, first of all, because they are interoperable with other ecosystems. And so if you want to offer DeFi solutions that capture holders of a Cosmos token or holders of a token that exists in the Ethereum world, you can take advantage of that. But more importantly, the other reason why you should be interested in Cronos is because it is a logical gateway for those tens or hundreds of millions of new crypto users to start experimenting with DeFi, NFTs, and the Metaverse. Of course, it's low friction. I mentioned that before. And all those factors have contributed to tremendous traction since we launched Cronos. So we are today at $2.5 billion of total value locked. So it's the 9th largest blockchain in the world when measured by TVL. We are at around 200,000 transactions per day today, 350,000 unique wallets. And so things are going well. And so for you as a Dapp developer, it means that you can ride the wave of an ecosystem that has traction and investment behind it, yet is not too crowded and is still a place where you can have visibility as a Dapp developer. On this page, there are some examples of dApps that have deployed on Cronos already. I'm not going to describe them in detail. Just know that today there are around 100 dApps that have deployed on Cronos. So those include DeFi apps, DEXs, decentralized lending protocols, etc. A few NFT collections and marketplaces. And of course, there's also the whole range of developer tools and infrastructure that you can expect as a Dapp developer. So MetaMask works with Cronos, Truffle and Ganache and Hardhat work with Cronos. All the smart contract libraries that you are used to can be deployed with no change on Cronos. The Ethers.js and Web3.js libraries work on Cronos. And over time, we are going to also deploy all the tools like indexers, Gnosis Safe, all the high-quality RPC endpoints that you can expect and need as a Dapp developer. So, how does Cronos connect to the rest of the ecosystems? There are various bridges technologies that are in place that I'm going to talk about. The starting point for us is that in order for people to build DeFi solutions that have low transaction fees and are easy to access for mainstream users, first we need to have all the tokens that people are used to trading present with significant liquidity on the Cronos chain. And so for us, that was the first step. WBTC, WETH, all the main stable coins, all those tokens are available on Cronos with each between $30 million and $700 million of liquidity. And so for us, as a layer one, that was really the first challenge in terms of building an ecosystem that developers could rely on to create DeFi solutions. Then, when it comes to connecting those tokens to other ecosystems, there are many considerations at play. So the first consideration is, when you're creating a bridge, are you locking liquidity on one side of the bridge and then minting new tokens on the other side of the bridge? Or are you taking advantage of existing liquidity that exists on both sides and simply incentivizing liquidity providers to facilitate instant trades for the users, leveraging tokens and liquidity that already exist on both sides? The second consideration that you need to take into account is, of course, what are the trust assumptions that are part and parcel of the bridge that you are working with or partnering with in our case. And so there's a bunch of great articles that were posted by the founder of Connext, Arjun, about that, and he talks about the interoperability trilemma. If you haven't read that, I really encourage you to have a look at those articles. But they explain really how it's really hard to be at the same time a bridge that is trustless, that can convey any kind of message, and that can work with any kind of chain. And so in most cases, you have to do trade-offs between those three dimensions. And finally, there's a very important consideration as well, which is to what extent is the Dapp easily composable for Dapp developers? And what I mean by that is, of course, a bunch of bridges are front ends. So if you are an end user, you're going to use those bridges to transfer your tokens from one chain to the other. However, for you as a Dapp developer, what matters is really how you can use those bridges under the hood, and therefore, to what extent are there APIs and SDKs that you can leverage as a Dapp developer so that the experience for your users is seamless, and in some cases, they don't even know that their trades went through a bridge. And so, there are several models that we've deployed and are in the process of deploying, and I just want to share with you what those models are so that you understand the trade-offs that we're making in each case. So the first model is the centralized bridge. It's a model that we are able to leverage because we are partnering with Crypto.com. And so it's a model where really it is Crypto.com that you have to trust in order to believe that the tokens that you have on Cronos have a value and are redeemable for the equivalent token on Ethereum or on another chain. So the way that a centralized bridge works is simply that as a user, you deposit tokens to your Crypto.com account. They are custodied by Crypto.com. You then withdraw it to another chain, and the advantage of doing that is that it's cheap and instant. And once it's done, then those tokens have the legal status of IOUs, if you will, so that meaning that those tokens have the value that is attributed to them by the fact that Crypto.com is saying, whenever you come to me with those tokens, I will redeem for their equivalent value in a Crypto.com account or in another chain. And so the advantage, of course, is that it's a model that is extremely easy for us to deploy. It's also a model that works with any chain, right? So that's why we've been able to create tokens on Cronos that are interoperable with Ethereum and Cosmos, but also we're in the process of deploying tokens from unrelated ecosystems. More recently, that was the Polkadot token, with others that are underway. In terms of trust, well, so I've put on the right, on the top right corner, some of the trade-offs that you might want to consider here. But in terms of trust, well, it depends a little bit on whether you trust that a centralized exchange is trustworthy or not, or whether it's risky or not to trust them. Of course, they are centralized. On the other hand, their reputation is at stake if they don't make good on their promise. So that's a consideration to have. The main drawback of this technology, of course, is that it's not composable at all, right? So you can't seamlessly integrate it with a chain of smart contracts. In order to integrate it with your app, there's always at some point the need to go through a Crypto.com account, and therefore that creates a break in your user journey. The second type of bridge is what we call native bridge. So broadly speaking, a native bridge is a bridge where the value of your tokens on the destination chain and the absence of double spending are guaranteed by the same consensus as the consensus on the destination chain. Meaning, all the validators on Cronos are coming to a consensus that you own the tokens that are registered on Cronos, and all the validators on Cronos are coming to a consensus that the same amount of tokens has been locked in the origin chain, in this case, the Ethereum mainnet. So in the case of the Gravity Bridge, which is the technology that we're implementing to establish a bridge with the Ethereum mainnet. The workflow is shown on this slide. I'm not going to describe it in detail. I will publish the slides later on. But broadly speaking, the way it works is that you have a smart contract on Ethereum. That smart contract knows the signatures of all 26 validators of the Cronos chain. And so the consensus of the chain is registered on Ethereum mainnet. And then what happens is if you want to transfer from Ethereum to Cronos, then you simply ask all the Cronos validators to listen to events on Ethereum. And whenever 2/3 of them see that some tokens have been locked in the bridge contract, then they all come to a consensus to mint the equivalent number of tokens in the destination chain. And when you're looking at the other direction, the way it works is that you're sending your tokens to a special smart contract on Cronos. All the validators on Cronos are testifying that those tokens have been locked. And because their signatures are registered and recognized on Ethereum mainnet, the smart contract that is on the mainnet is able to unlock the liquidity that was previously locked at the deposit stage. And so, of course, again, this is a model that is, for us, very easy to implement because we can embed it directly in the protocol. However, it's also a model that is highly trusted in the sense that you only need to believe that the validators on Cronos are trustworthy in order to guarantee the value of your tokens on Cronos. On the other hand, again, it's not very composable. It's not easy to integrate into other dApps. And so that's clearly one of the downsides that we have to deal with. The third model is what we call peer-to-peer bridge. So an example of that is Connext. Yeah, 2 minutes left. So the technical principle behind a peer-to-peer bridge is very similar to that of hash time locked contracts. For those of you who know them, so the idea behind the peer-to-peer bridge is that when you want to transfer tokens from Ethereum to Cronos, for example, there is one router who is going to be assigned and say, I take the responsibility of fronting the liquidity for the user on Cronos, and in exchange, I will wait to get paid later on after the transaction is completed on Ethereum with the same amount of tokens. And so, those bridges that are called peer-to-peer or trustless in our ecosystem are highly regarded because they make very, very little trust assumptions. However, what we've seen is that they have they so far haven't had as much traction as other types of bridges, and so there's really and so I think what we've learned is that although they work really, really well, we can't simply rely on that particular solution for all bridges. And finally, the bridges that are by far the most commonly used by users today, aside from the native bridges, and those are the bridges with external consensus. And the way that those work generally is that you have an intermediary chain where validators are putting a stake. Those validators are the ones who are taking the responsibility of confirming that some tokens have been locked on the origin chain and therefore can be unlocked on the or minted on the destination chain. And in order for that transaction to take place, you're relying on the fact that those validators don't have an incentive, an economic incentive, to take your tokens away. And so, of course, that trust model is rather risky when you're on L1 because it means that you have to rely on the consensus of another chain. But again, we've seen that those bridges are extremely widespread. They have by far the highest total value locked, and so we can't dismiss them outright. We have to consider them and engage in security reviews. So that's it for today. Thanks for your attention. I hope that's helpful.